Welcome to Goth or E-Girl / E-Boy. Can you tell the difference? Let's find out.
Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm feeling a little bit ranty, a little bit irritated. I want to have a conversation about something. So I wanted to talk about the surprising amount of people outside the subculture that love to talk about goth as if they have their PhD in it, but when in actuality, they couldn't name a single goth band. They couldn't identify a single goth song, and what they visually are clocking as a goth most often is not. It's usually an e-girl or the lesser talked about e-boy, or in some cases you have like the people who discover trad makeup and do like some combination of that and kabuki theater. But be that as it may, they kind of talk as if they're coming from a place of this great understanding and great knowledge when they're not part of it, and they genuinely have no freaking idea of what they're talking about. So some of it we can definitely chalk up to willful ignorance, because despite the internet being free, people are inherently lazy and like to take the shortest road possible, and what they are perceiving as Occam's razor is in fact the douchebag canoe. Back in the OG days of goth, things very much felt like an egg hunt by the way the information was received as well as exchanged, just like based on what we had. But that didn't make it any less satisfying or fun, and it was way more interactive than it is today. And I'm saying that carefully because I want to make sure not to sort of cast any unfair shadows or disparage anyone in the goth scene of today that didn't experience that. But it was more interactive, and when you are used to something so fun and so epic, you naturally want to share that, which is why I'm always trying to encourage you to discover that, because you want to share things that are fun. It's just kind of instinctual, I guess. Back in the day, when it came to any information pertaining to the subculture, anything, whether it's a new album, a new club opening up band, touring, anything, we would get the equivalent of like one Skittle a week's worth of information, and the modern goth gets an entire bag of Skittles chucked at their skull every 16 seconds, which is the beauty and the curse that is the internet. The reason it's a blessing is because all of the information at our disposal and the way that we can easily access the community. But the reason it's a curse is because it opens the door to opportunists, misinformation, clout chasers. And when you're dealing with like a visual medium such as this, everybody kind of rushes to out-visual each other. And when it comes to the more kind of clout chaser opportunist types, they'll see this and then catch on. And once they kind of visually grab you, they got your attention. And once they have your attention, they will tell you basically anything just to line their pockets, and you'll take it as gospel because you don't know any better. So the way information was exchanged back in the day for us, it was word of mouth, it was zines, magazines, or it was like band postcards, whether it would be like an album release or touring, flyers, postcards, passes, all kind of put at record stores or your favorite alternative clothing, accessory, shoe shop. And there was like this sense of depth and meaning that came along with it because of all the work that you put in to get there. You felt more plugged into something real. It was tangible. It had like a beating heart. You were physically out there doing the work. Rain, sleet, sunshine, snow, it did not matter. You were walking, you were taking buses, you were taking trains. And you had to kind of put in all of that physical effort just to basically get anywhere, to do anything, to see anybody. The arduous task that it was just to talk to the person that you wanted to talk to. Getting them on the telephone, like actual landlines, because there's no cell phones. So you had to get them on the landline, and it was a bit of a feat if you managed to do that, because in that time, that culture, we were just always out. So back then, when you left the house, you were unreachable, and things were never squandered. We never took it for granted. Even simple conversations that we managed to have when we found each other. So we never took those things for granted. Versus now, where everyone and everything is a click away, and no one is unreachable anymore. And if they are, you file a missing persons report because something is wrong. So not only is it easy to lose that sense of passion and that deeper sense of community, it also opens us up to interpretation and public cosplay, which just leads to confusion and chaos. Too often, not only have I seen it, I've experienced it, when you have these people with their wannabe PhDs in goth, you have like neckbeards, you have clout chasers, opportunists, rejects, anybody who sees a person expressing even the smallest level of passion toward the goth community. They always got to come in and meet it with that, "It ain't that deep." By using that phrase, they're trying to gaslight you into believing that just the mere act of experiencing something real, but feeling something, having a connection to the subculture, having a connection to the music, holding true to one's identity, that any one of those things are to be seen as like weak or lame. They don't want you to connect anything. They're trying to shame you out of living your life. Trying to shame somebody out of enjoying their life just because they're connecting to something and they're feeling something powerful and meaningful to them just shows us that you're mad because you can't. Last I checked, being shallow is not a good thing. So believe me, whenever we hear "it ain't that deep," it is a proclamation that you doth be boring as shit. Let's play a little game called Is It a Goth or Is It an E-boy/E-girl? Because let's face it, if you cannot tell the difference, what makes you think that you're in any way informed or educated or qualified enough to judge or speak for us?
Welcome to Goth or E-girl/E-boy. Can you tell the difference? Let's find out. Okay, which is the goth and which is the e-girl? If you guessed correctly, congratulations. One is being moved by the music and the other is moving her body for you. Failing that, the goth band posters in the background is like a dead giveaway. Next up, goth or e-boy? If you guessed wrong, pro tip, if they look like a SoundCloud rapper and only use mumble rap in their videos, but they hashtag goth to death, it's an e-boy. Next up, which one is the goth girl? If you guessed incorrectly, you probably don't know your ass from your elbow either. You so can't use my loofah. This is Anastasia, lead vocalist of the band Cemetery Sex. Bonus round. Come on, guys, you should know this one. This is Dusty from the band Vision Video and Goth Guy Extraordinaire. His band has garnered a huge international following with 3 studio albums, 1 single, music videos galore, and selling out venues from the US across Europe.
You prophesize the end of everything, and you beg for it with such heavenly pleasure.
That does it for Goth or E-girl/E-boy. Quick tips. Goths show you things. The focus is external, from music to info, something they've made, stories, fashion. So when music is used in their content, it is always goth or goth adjacent. With an E-girl/E-boy, the focus is inward, as in on themselves. From their face card to their bodies, they tend to draw aesthetic inspiration from Japanese pop culture. Anime, SoundCloud rappers, modern version of film icons such as Joker, The Crow, you get the idea. Music they feature will never be goth and usually some form of rap, metal, or emo. So, how did you do on this quiz?
If someone has no choice but to default to e-girls rather than goth girls, as an example, whenever trying to discuss or discredit us as a community, that tells us 2 things. Whatever brush they're attempting to paint the goth community as, it doesn't apply, and they know good and damn well that they're talking out of their ass, but they're banking on your inability to tell the difference. Or they are so far removed from goth that they don't know the difference themselves. Either way, liar, liar, pants on fire. Just know that if you buy into that, yet you further perpetuate any harmful tropes, stereotypes, or misinformation about goths, when you are perfectly capable at deciphering between a goth and an e-boy/e-girl, you got no excuse. You are acting out of pure malice. You should know better. It's weird for me, and pretty much I would say anybody existing in the subculture who were part of it prior to the internet really taking hold. So to the younger goths, the newer goths, there are a lot of them who they never knew a life without social media. They grew up and this whole thing was pre-established. So they grew up into a world where the internet existed versus us, where we kind of lived our lives and it just became a thing. So their flabbers aren't exactly gasted like, Gen X, millennials, zennials when they see this shit. Music-based subcultures were always named for the genre of music that created them. punk music, metal music, goth music. So it was always what it said it was on the tin. There was never any room for speculation, versus now where you kind of have to really go into deep explanation and people still don't understand the concept of music-based subcultures and really what they mean, because there are constantly people that like the concept of things and want to apply all of these different things to it without actually listening to the music. So it's very strange to me, because that kind of thing, it never happened. Nobody pretended to be any one of those things back then. Nobody wanted to. You got your ass handed to you by society if you lived your life outside their norms. It was just the way that it was. You were a freak. So people were not exactly quick to sign up to have abuse shouted at them, or even worse, risk the idea of a physical assault just by leaving the house. They weren't going to risk that type of thing unless it really truly was an inherent part of who they were. What would have been the point? There's nothing to gain from it. Being goth meant that you listened to goth music. In the 90s, when somebody was physically presenting as goth, you knew that they listened to goth music. There was never a question. They listened to goth music, and there was no monetary reward in that. There was no fame. So the whole concept of somebody pretending to be a goth to people such as myself who socialized pre-internet is absolutely crazy, because nobody did something unless they wanted to or they had to. So if you wanted money and you wanted popularity, you got a job and you went out and you socialized. The last thing you did was pretend to be part of a subculture that society at large deemed as subhuman and treated like absolute garbage, and attempt to make a living off that simply by existing. How would that even work? I mean, without universal, constant access to social media, it would be physically impossible. The internet is a source for so many different things, but what it also does is it creates an environment for opportunists to thrive. They get the gist of the aesthetic, but they know nothing about the community, so they just kind of make it up as they go. They create their own fanfic that suits their narrative, and then it unfortunately attaches itself to the rest of our community. One fun side effect is going from being called a freak to a dommy mommy. As goths back in the day, the only thing we really needed to defend ourselves against were trying to convince the public that we didn't drink blood or sacrifice chickens on talk shows. Gone are the days of Puritan-style rumors of dark doings, and now we're kind of inundated with armies of people using things called hashtags, and we're fighting literal stereotypes that have been created about us by way of actor fucking portrayals. Substance abuse, self-harm, mental instability, sexual depravity. Yes, many of us do have colorful sex lives, just like many of you do, other humans that exist out there in the world, and no, just because we wear black does not mean that we're going to do it with you. Just because you are attracted to something does not mean that it was designed for your arousal. That is a you problem. There are people who literally fetishize balloons. That is an actual fetish. So that being said, do you think that clowns that make balloon animals at parties should be scared? And this is why goths are so protective of the subculture. Many people like to refer to it as gatekeeping, but it's more of a dramatic reaction. And in some ways, I think it's probably the best term I can think of to describe it, but it's a lot more nuanced than that. And the gate's always open. So that's really the difference. We're not trying to keep people out. It's more about keeping people safe. More than anything else. It's like protecting the community. So the concept of gatekeeping, as it's commonly portrayed, as in a way to pull rank and be mean and keep people out just because we don't think that you are worthy or cool enough, is a bit ridiculous. Because as you can see by many people involved in the subculture, we're very passionate about it, something that we love. It's been going for quite a while, and it's something that we want to continue. So why do something that would be so actively detrimental to its survival? I'm going to give you a food example. My favorite pasta brand is Romo, and since having to go gluten-free, they very recently come out with a gluten-free version of the Romo. And it's my favorite. It is the best gluten-free pasta ever. Hear me out. This does pertain to goth, I promise you. So very recently, my grocery store started stocking it, and it's a very hard thing to find. So they've just started stocking it, and I don't want them to stop stocking it. I want to make sure that I constantly have access to that. I don't want to lose it. So for me to gatekeep that pasta, for me to not tell anybody about it, basically what's going to happen is the store is going to see it's not a popular item, it's not selling because it's a little bit niche. It's also located in a weird part of the store. So naturally, nobody's buying it, just me. They're not going to stock it anymore. But if I'm more open about it, if I tell people about it, I tell people the brand, I tell people where to find it, that means more people are going to go in and buy it. And the more people buy it, the more people utilize it, the more the store is going to see it as a success and continue to stock it. And therefore, I won't lose it. So if you love something, you want to have that thing endure. So to keep it under wraps is to just, lead in its inevitable demise. But for me to spread the word, I will forever be able to get that pasta because they will call it a success and continue to stock it. So Goth is very much the same way. When you stay tight-lipped, when you are mean to newcomers, you don't help people along and you don't allow people to come in, it's just a surefire way to kill it. And that's the opposite of what we want to happen. So really, when you see people use the term gatekeeping, as far as us within the community, when we refer to it as gatekeeping, it's more along the lines of safeguarding, keeping it safe, and wanting people to find it, be able to congregate freely in a safe space. And that's really what it's all about. But if you are a new goth and you're interested in the subculture and you're just getting started and you can't tell the difference between a goth and an e-boy and an e-girl, I would say that that's probably a good place to start, as well as the music. It's an important one.